"This isn't just about numbers, Congresswoman. It's about the truth itself," President Trump declared, his voice cutting through the rising tension in the hall. Beside him, Vice President Vance, with a glint of steel in his eyes, laid out the damning evidence, meticulously unraveling the carefully woven web of deception. The air crackled as Jasmine Crockett, her initial bravado crumbling, realized the trap she had sprung was now closing around her. The hum of 1,000 expectations filled the sprawling convention hall in Columbus, Ohio. Bright lights bathed the stage where the national town hall event was about to begin, broadcasting live to millions. On one side stood President Donald Trump, a figure of undeniable presence, his posture resolute. Beside him, Vice President J.D. Vance, calm and collected, exuded a quiet intellectual intensity. They represented a unified front, ready to address the nation. Opposite them, already radiating an almost palpable energy, was Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett. She had arrived not just as a participant, but as an architect of confrontation, her expressions carefully calibrated for maximum impact. From the moment she stepped onto the brightly lit platform, a predatory smile played on her lips. Tonight, she believed, was her moment to land a decisive blow. The moderator, a veteran journalist known for her sharp questions, began with a general query about the administration's economic policies. Trump delivered a confident, broad-strokes overview, highlighting job growth, reduced regulations, and resurgent American industries. Vance offered a concise, data-backed summary, underscoring the long-term strategic benefits of their economic agenda, particularly for the American working class. They were a well-oiled machine, projecting strength and unity. Then came Crockett's turn. She leaned into her microphone, her smile widening into a theatrical flourish. "President Trump, Vice President Vance," she began, her voice dripping with mock deference. "Your administration speaks of prosperity, but the reality for everyday Americans tells a different story. And I'm not talking about some abstract narrative. I'm talking about cold, hard data." She paused for effect, letting the words hang in the air. "I've been reviewing a comprehensive report from a highly respected, independent online fact-check organization, Truth and Transparency Watchdogs," she announced, pulling out a slim tablet. She gestured to a massive screen that descended behind her, already displaying a colorful but perplexing graph. And what this report reveals is damning. The graph was a jumble of lines and percentages, purportedly showing a steep decline in middle-class wealth, a surge in corporate profits unlinked to worker wages, and a widening economic disparity, all attributed directly to the administration's policies. Crockett pointed to specific segments, her finger stabbing at the screen. "You see here? Average household income for the middle 40% has actually declined by 3.7% in the last year. And this, corporate tax cuts led to a 15% increase in executive bonuses, with only a 0.2% rise in average worker wages." Her voice rose, laced with indignation. "These aren't my numbers, Mr. President. These are verified facts. Facts that paint a very different picture from your gilded pronouncements. Facts that show your policies have demonstrably harmed the middle class and disproportionately benefited the already wealthy." She looked directly at Trump, her eyes challenging him. "How do you explain this disconnect, Mr. President? Or do you simply deny reality?" A murmur rippled through the audience. Crockett's delivery was forceful, her data seemingly concrete. The pressure mounted on Trump and Vance. Trump listened, his expression unreadable at first. He didn't interrupt, didn't flinch. When she finished, a surprising calm settled over him. "Congresswoman Crockett," he said, his voice measured, "you speak of cold, hard data. And I appreciate that. Because in this administration, we believe in real data, not selectively chosen, distorted snapshots from, what was that organization again? Truth and Transparency Watchdogs?" There was a subtle irony in his tone. "Could you confirm the precise name of this highly respected source?" Crockett puffed out her chest, clearly confident. "Of course, Mr. President. It's truthandtransparencywatchdogs.org. You'll find their analysis unimpeachable." Her smirk suggested a trap successfully laid. "Unimpeachable," Trump repeated, a hint of a smile playing on his lips. "Vice President Vance, would you be so kind as to retrieve the appropriate documentation?" Vance, who had been observing Crockett with a focused gaze, gave a crisp nod. He didn't speak, but his movements were precise. He turned to an aide waiting discreetly off stage, who immediately handed him a thick, leather-bound binder. Vance then walked to Trump's podium, placing the binder firmly before him. The slight, almost imperceptible exchange conveyed a quiet preparedness that contrasted sharply with Crockett's public theatrics. "Congresswoman, while you are meticulously selecting your facts from this online blog," Trump began, his voice gaining a deeper resonance, "my team, spearheaded by Vice President Vance, was compiling the full picture. Because true transparency doesn't hide context, it doesn't cherry-pick, it shows everything." He opened the binder. "Let's start with your claim. Average household income for the middle 40% has actually declined by 3.7% in the last year. A very serious claim, Congresswoman, and a very misleading one." He gestured to the screen behind him, which now displayed a different graph, far more expansive. This is data directly from the Bureau of Labor Statistics, spanning the last 5 years, not just the last 12 months. You'll notice, in the full context, that while there was indeed a temporary dip you highlighted, it was immediately followed by a robust recovery and an overall Zymes increase of 5.1% in real average household income for that exact demographic over the past 2 years. Your 3.7% decline was a micro-fluctuation, deliberately isolated to paint a false narrative. The audience murmured again, this time with a different quality. A few heads turned towards Crockett. Her confident smile wavered slightly. "Next," Trump continued, flipping a page. "Your assertion that corporate tax cuts led to a 15% increase in executive bonuses, with only a 0.2% rise in average worker wages." He looked up, his gaze piercing. "Again, a half-truth designed to mislead. Our tax reforms incentivized businesses to reinvest in America, and they did. Here," he pointed to another detailed chart, "is data from the Federal Reserve and the Treasury Department. Corporate investments in new equipment and R&D jumped by 20% in the same period. And yes, executive compensation saw a rise, but more importantly, average trucker wages, when factoring in benefits, overtime, and the expansion of skilled trades, actually increased by an average of 4.5% across the board. The 0.2% you cited was from a very specific, narrow sector, omitting millions of American workers." Crockett shifted uneasily, her eyes darting between Trump, the screen, and the audience. "Mr. President, you're spinning this. These are reputable sources." "Reputable sources are exactly what we're discussing, Congresswoman," Vance interjected, his voice calm but firm. He stepped forward slightly, holding up a printout from the binder. "And speaking of truth and transparency watchdogs.org, since you find their analysis unimpeachable, let's talk about their methodology. We took the liberty of looking into how they verify their facts." He projected a new slide, a screenshot of Truth and Transparency Watchdogs.org's About Us page, but with specific sections highlighted. "Their funding," Vance explained, his tone methodical, "comes primarily from a single anonymous charitable foundation which, upon deeper investigation, appears to be a pass-through for a lobbying group deeply invested in opposing nearly all current administration policies. Furthermore, their, quote, expert analysts are listed only by first name and initial, with no verifiable professional credentials or past publications. This isn't fact-checking, Congresswoman. This is an echo chamber disguised as an independent arbiter of truth." Crockett's face flushed. "That's an outrageous accusation. You're attacking the messenger because you can't defend your failed policies," she retorted, her voice rising in pitch, a hint of desperation creeping in. "We are attacking misleading information, Congresswoman," Trump stated, his voice now commanding the room. "And we are defending the American people from those who would intentionally distort reality for political gain. Let's look at one more. Your claim that economic disparity is widening." He tapped a final page in the binder. The Federal Reserve's latest report on household net worth, broken down by income quintiles, actually shows that the lowest 2 quintiles have experienced the largest percentage growth in wealth over the last year, largely due to rising wages and a booming job market providing new opportunities. This is concrete data, Congresswoman, not fabricated narratives from anonymous internet watchdogs. He slammed the binder shut with a decisive thud. What you've presented tonight, Congresswoman, isn't truth or transparency. It's a carefully constructed fiction designed to divide and mislead. You took snippets out of context, relied on a demonstrably biased and unverified source, and then tried to present it as gospel. Trump's gaze was unwavering, his moral authority asserting itself. That isn't debate, that's deception. The silence in the hall was deafening. The live camera zoomed in on Crockett, whose face had gone from fiery defiance to a mask of bewildered anger. She opened her mouth to speak, but no coherent words emerged. Her carefully constructed facade of certainty had shattered. Vance stepped forward again, his voice cutting through the tension with surgical precision. Congresswoman, the role of an elected official is to serve the public with integrity, to present facts, not fictions, to engage in honest debate, not to weaponize misleading data from partisan sources to create an illusion of failure. Tonight you've exposed not the administration's failings, but the lengths to which some are willing to go to undermine progress for purely political ends. His words were a final, devastating blow aimed squarely at her credibility. The audience began to buzz, a wave of realization washing over them. The clarity of Trump and Vance's presentation, backed by undeniable, mainstream data, contrasted starkly with Crockett's flustered attempts to defend her flimsy sources. On social media, the clips of Trump and Vance systematically dismantling Crockett's claims were already going viral, juxtaposed with screenshots of the truthandtransparencywatchdogs.org website now being dissected by thousands of skeptical eyes. Users were quickly finding its anonymous funding, its lack of verifiable experts, and its selective reporting. Crockett, visibly defeated, mumbled a hasty retreat about different interpretations of data and the people's right to question. But the damage was done. Her moment of intended triumph had spectacularly backfired, exposing her as either deeply misinformed or, worse, intentionally deceptive. As the town hall ended, President Trump and Vice President Vance walked off stage, their expressions calm and resolute. They had not just won a debate, they had delivered an intellectual and strategic victory, reminding millions of the importance of verifiable truth in an age saturated with misinformation. Crockett's reputation as a reliable source of information, once burnished by aggressive media appearances, had taken a significant, perhaps irreparable hit. The fact-check fiasco had indeed become a stark lesson in the power of unassailable truth. What did you find most striking about how President Trump and Vice President Vance dismantled the misleading facts presented in this story? Let us know your thoughts in the comments. And don't forget to subscribe for more captivating narratives.